Hello everybody, Adam Monk here again from FourFourTwo. Welcome back to another Friday show. Yeah, in case you missed it, Man City won the league. Now I myself personally enjoyed it. There's me on the pitch there at full time. Don't ask me why I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. But if you're not a Man City fan, then you probably at full time went, oh, and likely switched over to the Chase or something like that. I don't know if, is that broadcast on Sundays? I don't know. If not, actually I don't think it is. So if not, yeah, you probably switched over to Klopp's leaving speech or something, or just did something with the family. So yeah, the big part of the Premier League season, the title race is over now and finished, and people are sort of winding down and getting ready for the Euros, truth be told. But there is two big games to play, of course, one being the Champions League final and the other one being the FA Cup final. Yeah, it's one of them, innit? Like, if you're a neutral, if you don't support City or United, then I guess if City win, you're just kind of going to shrug and get on with your life and your day. Whereas if United win, I think a few people will go, wow. I don't know what that was. Wow. Wow. They'll be, wow, shocked. What am I doing? Wow. What I'm trying to convey is that it will be a shock to people, not a kind of Leicester City level shock, but kind of like the kind of shock where, like, you know, when you're trying to wear the same item of clothing 2 days on the bounce, and on the second morning you decipher whether it's all right by just smelling it. And then you go, oh, actually, that's all right. Anyway, yeah, the FA Cup final. Let's talk about it. The first point I'd make is actually about the narrative of this game surrounding Manchester United. A lot of fans, or fans of any club really, seem to think that Ten Hag's job could kind of hinge on this game, and I don't really think that's the case. There is now numerous reports saying that Ten Hag categorically will leave regardless of the FA Cup final result on Saturday, but then other people like, I don't know, someone like Gary Neville, who I actually agree with on this instance, has said that, like, you know, there's so much movement going on behind the scenes at United in the backroom staff. They're of course hiring like sporting directors, CEOs, that kind of thing, that you're almost trying to move too many pieces at once. And I think with a squad that has kind of been in disarray for large parts this season and injury hit, and the managerial market as well being absolute fodder for the most part at the moment, you may as well just like kind of stick with him, I think. So in my opinion, Erik Ten Hag's future, 50-50. I don't really know what's going to happen, but I don't think that this result will affect it at all, unless it's like 12-0 to City, which it actually could be. City are good, we know this. United haven't been very good this season. We know this, but we also know that football can spring a surprise. If United are going to have any chance of winning this game, then they've got to address what has been, I think, personally, their biggest issue this season, and that's been the disconnect between the midfield and the defence in transition when the other team turn over the ball. I could show you so many clips of them being bypassed in the pockets and in transition. This one, of course, being against Fulham. And the main reasons for this really have been, namely, one being Casemiro getting a boot sponsorship from 𝗕𝗫𝗬𝗏 this season, thus rendering him pretty immobile and forcing him to do three-point turns. But also the disjointed personnel consistently in the back line all season, you know. And I think when United signed Jonny Evans, aged 37 at the start of the season, I think they probably expected him to play 50, maybe 20 games, mostly in the Cups, but he's played a fair whack in the league. And of course, as well, there's also been the massive inconsistency at fullback as well, with Luke Shaw in and out of the team. And also 𝗘𝗫𝗓𝗧𝗏 sort of being, I mean, I don't want to say it, but like, what has happened to that bloke? So they chop and they change and they chop and they change. But if you ask any Manchester United fan who their favourite defender is, or who the one they rate the most is, I'm pretty sure they will just unanimously say Lisandro Martinez. He's United's best ball-playing centre-back by a mile, and he did start his first game at the Emirates on the final day since February for United. So I think with it potentially also being Ten Hag's last game, he might just throw him in from the start, because he really helps give United that sense of control. And I know that's very hard to get against a Man City side, but you do need a centre-half like that who can almost bring that sense of calm. I know Onana's quite good on the ball, but then in front of that, you've had the likes of Evans, Lindelof, Maguire. You know, these centre-halves, they're good maybe first and foremost defensively, but ball-playing, maybe not as adept as Lisandro, especially playing those incisive ground passes into the likes of Mainoo and Casemiro. Despite the fact I have just said what Man United's main weakness, in my opinion, has been this season, I think Lisandro coming back, and also their recent loss but performance against Arsenal defensively, has given them a platform and a foundation to kind of build off of. Against Arsenal, who of course are a side who set up similarly to Manchester City, of course with the exception of maybe Erling Haaland pressing high as that sort of target man, but Kai Havertz is still tall but a bit more of a link player. They went for a 3v2 defensively when on the ball by dropping Amrabat into that middle centre-half position, who of course was actually deployed on the team sheet as a centre defensive mid. And you can see here, these are the average positions of the outfield players in United's team, with Evans and Casemiro the deepest, but then Amrabat the third furthest back, with the fullbacks pushed high, but also quite central as well. So they were smothering the middle of the park, which is something that I think is worthwhile for United to do against these top quality sides like City and Arsenal, who like to knock it about in the middle of the park. The trade-off, of course, then, against a team like Man City and Arsenal is when you smother the middle of the pitch, they'll simply ping it out wide, whether that's to Jack Grealish or Kyle Walker or 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗔 or 𝗕𝗫𝗃𝗧𝗧𝗏, whoever it may be. But then what you are looking at here is Manchester United's tackle map against Arsenal in this game. And you can see a few in the middle, but the most concentrated area is in those wide positions. Particularly Diogo Dalot as well, number 20, you can see at the top there. Now, let me add in the recoveries that Manchester United made as well. Boom, there we go. Absolutely all over the place. In a good way as well. It was actually the most recoveries that Manchester United have made in a game all season long, despite the 1-0 loss scoreline. So the indication would be that against top quality opposition, their off-the-ball work has slightly improved. And that is albeit as well with a very, very injury-hit side. And then the second positive or point for Manchester United, I guess, would be a focus on a single player. And no, it's not 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏𝗏 Mainoo. I have waxed lyrical about that bloke, that kid, for months now. And I stand by that. I think he's a phenomenal player. But there's also another young player at Manchester United who, I mean, it kind of baffles me, having watched him now on the eye test alone in the last few games, why he hasn't been playing consistently for United all season. But that is, of course, Amad Diallo. Now, he's only made 9 appearances for United this season, which is a crime in my opinion. So there's not enough data to have a full per 90 scouting report on him. But if you go off last season, playing in the Championship last season, he was in the top 1% of players in Europe for goal creating actions, which typifies what I've seen of him from watching him on the eye test. He reminds me a little bit of Bernardo Silva with the way he dribbles with the ball. He operates with an awful lot of dexterity. He holds onto it well, but he's also not afraid to be direct and incisive and sort of play that, I won't even say defence splitting pass, but pass that causes chaos, as seen with this assist here. I know you could argue this is a little bit of a fluky assist to 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏𝗏 Mainoo, but the fact that Amad Diallo played this pass is something that Manchester United have been missing so much this season. How many times in the Arsenal game did we see Garnacho get to the byline, slip, fall over, play a lacklustre cross? You know, that incisiveness is something that Manchester United just haven't had this season, other than through Bruno Fernandes. So I think regardless of whether Ten Hag is here or not next season, Diallo needs to be playing so many more games because he looks to be a danger man against any fullback that he comes up against, and he plays without fear as well. So United will be absolutely needing that against Manchester City. Anyway, guys, yes, it's time for the interview part of the video, and reluctantly, I've now got to speak to a Manchester United fan. Only joking, it's my good friend 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 from 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. I also host a radio with him as well at the BBC, so we know each other well. He's a massive United fan, a knowledgeable United fan, and I thought I'd have him on to have a chat about the FA Cup final. So none the less, Gaz, take it away.
Well, there's been times after certain games where I felt quite emotional about certain games. Like I think back to the Chelsea game. I think back to, getting spanked by Bournemouth at Old Trafford. The derby at Old Trafford as well was particularly bad. The Etihad one, I wasn't too concerned with the performance necessarily. Yeah. And after the games, I've been quite bemused at the way United play at times, the chaotic style of the play. But I think now there's been a bit of breathing space now, and it's been, United have got a couple of wins at the end of the season. I can look back and I can say that, look, it's no excuse this. That United squad should never be finishing 8th in the Premier League. Yeah. You could maybe permit them to finish 6th or 7th with the amount of injuries they've had. But the injuries have been absolutely sensational for United this season. We've lost our best players for the majority of the season. Luke Shaw and Lisandro Martinez are so integral to the way Ten Hag wants to play. You think back to that spell last year in the February where United had won the derby at Old Trafford. They'd beaten Barcelona. They'd won the Carabao Cup, of course. And you could see exactly the way that Ten Hag wants to play and how integral some of these players were. Even players like Casemiro, who was fantastic last season. He was man of the match, I think, actually, in the Carabao Cup final. And this season, he's just had a massive drop-off. United should have seen that coming, obviously, when you spend 60 million quid on a player of his age. But I do now look at the structure and the way things are changing at Man United and think signings like that won't be the signings we make this summer. I think it'll take a while now for United to rebuild slightly. I think if they even have half the injuries that they've had this season, it'll be a lot better next season. But I'm also hoping for a strategic summer with, the people that have been appointed, Barada and Ashworth and things like that. And things will be thought of. They'll think things through a little bit more. So I'm slightly positive for next season, but that's not me saying I think United are going to challenge for the Premier League. They're not.
Yeah,
it's going to take.
You've always got to be, haven't you? And like, it kind of
Yeah.
leads me to the next question, because you just said about like the how it's going to be strategic now, and there's more movement in the backroom staff at United now than there is actually in the team, and that's something that I think, you know, as a neutral, even though I'm not, like, that's needed to happen at United since 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏. Like, that's not even up for debate, really. You've had vacant positions there that have been dormant for years, like sporting directors, CEOs, things like that. So do you think, in a weird way, like, I think on the surface, if this was 6 years ago, United finished 8th, Ten Hag would have been sacked, right? Like, at the end of this season, no if, buts, maybes, he would have been sacked. But do you think the amount of movement maybe behind the scenes at United is actually going to save his job, maybe? Because I personally think that the damage or lack thereof has probably already been done, and I don't think the result of this FA Cup final will alter what happens with Ten Hag's future at United whatsoever. What do you think?
No, I think they've already made the decision.
Yeah.
What that decision is, I'm not too sure. I was pretty dead set even just 3 days ago that Ten Hag is going to be the United manager next season. And then we saw some reports, really bizarre reports actually, from 𝗕𝗫𝗧𝗏.
Yeah.
Where it was other people quoting him, but he's not put anything on his social media, basically reporting that United are going to get rid of Erik Ten Hag. So that has made me question things a little bit. To answer your question, look, I have absolutely no idea. I can see the pros and cons of both trails of thought there. You know, keeping Ten Hag, and when he doesn't have this excuse of the unbelievable injuries that Manchester United have next season, and we can see an implementation of the style that we did see at times last season, it maybe does make some sort of sense. And, you know, for Ineos to come in and almost straight away sack a manager, it might not be a good look for them. On the flip side, it might be a good look for them, because they can start afresh now. They can say, you know, this is our own guy. He's going to answer to the guys that we've brought in as well. He works well with this group. There's so many questions to be answered about Ten Hag, and in a way, the only real way to answer those questions is to keep him and see how next season goes. Having said all that, if United don't have a good start to the season, and I mean a really good start as well, I think by November and December we'd see him go. He'd be on his last legs, which isn't a good position for any manager to go in at the start of the season, really.
Yeah, I mean, as well, you've got to look at the managerial market. It's a bit meh at the moment, isn't it? Like, there's not really any names that jump out at you like Jose Mourinho did years gone by at United, and maybe Ten Hag kind of jumped out as well as like a candidate for the job 2 years ago. So there is that to contend with as well. But like, looking at the game, the FA Cup final in of itself, of course, I've said in the video that I've recorded that will be before this bit that, like, I think United's biggest problem this season has been the disconnect between the midfield and the defence, and they've been turned over in transition so often, largely down to Casemiro dropping off, I think, as well, and like 𝗕𝗫𝗏 not really doing what he was brought in to do for large parts of the season. But I would say, despite you losing the game against Arsenal, there was signs of improvement defensively, and in terms of that ball retention and turning over the ball quicker and maybe pressing a bit higher, playing a bit more compact and narrow. How do you think, it's a very hard question to answer this, guys, but how do you think United can best stifle City in this game?
I suppose some would say that maybe the style that United play would almost suit them most against Manchester City. And we've seen in the last two games that there has been a switch up of the tactics. United didn't start with a recognised striker against either Newcastle or Brighton, and they almost started with Fernandes and 𝗕𝗫𝗓𝗍 as the two furthest players forward. I think that is in preparation for this final, because Ten Hag realised that there's really not much to play for. Conference League, arsed. And I kind of think that's what he was thinking. And I think we will see that against City, but I don't think it'll be 𝗕𝗫𝗓𝗍. I think it'll be Rasmus Højlund. Rasmus Højlund scored 2 great goals. He scored a good goal against Newcastle, a really good goal against Brighton. And these are players that are good in the transition for United. So I do think that this I don't want to say 2 up top, because it really isn't. It's basically playing without a striker. But this style is the way that United are going to go about coming up against Manchester City. I mean, you've heard all this before, haven't you? You know, you play against Man City, the only way to beat them is on the break. And we're not going to suffer fools. We're not going to keep possession in this game. We're not going to have much of the ball. But if we can get you on these counter-attacks, then that is where we're going to get at you at. Andre Onana is going to be vital in this game. Firstly, obviously, he needs to be on it in terms of shot stopping. He's going to face a lot of shots. United face a lot of shots by the likes of Sheffield United this season. So City are going to get a hatful. So there's a lot of things United need to hope for. They need to hope, firstly, that Foden isn't going to stick one in the top bins this time. They need to hope that maybe Haaland isn't quite on his game. He's going to miss a couple of chances. These are all unlikely things, by the way. Like, yeah, yeah, exactly. Like these are just hopes at the moment, and hope that you don't score after 2.5 seconds or something. Honestly, I'll be cheering if we win the kickoff at this point.
You want about the West Ham game or last season's FA Cup final?
Last season's FA Cup final and the West Ham game. Yeah, but I think you scored after 1 minute and 15 seconds, which I found quite funny. But yeah, so obviously United need to be careful. That United need to get a bit of luck, basically, is what I'm saying in the start of the games, and just be really ruthless on the transition. What I was saying about Onana there as well, he needs to be on it in terms of shot stopping, but also in terms of starting United's moves. That goal against City at the Etihad, I thought United actually did all right in that first half. What I'm describing now and getting a bit of luck, that also happened. Haaland missed that blinding opportunity. Man City weren't necessarily creating too many clear-cut chances. Jeremy Doku just did not impress at all for me. And United need to get lucky there. But that goal that I was talking about, that Rashford scored in the derby, that started with Onana going long to Bruno Fernandes. Fernandes bringing it down, laying it off to Rashford. Onana's distribution needs to be clinical in this game, and he also can't be second-guessing himself, because we've seen this I've seen it a lot in the Brighton game in particular, where Onana would have the ball. United's wingers, it was Diallo and Garnacho on that day, would make these runs in behind, and Onana would almost look at it, look as if he's about to go long, and then go, oh, hang on a minute, let's keep possession here. And we saw Onana say this in the interview with Gary Neville recently on the overlap, that against certain teams he will go short because he thinks that United should dominate possession. He's not going to think that against Man City. Yeah, he's gonna go long and find these runners every single time. If he can find the runners, and he's going to have to do it on multiple occasions, and United's runners are going to actually have to be clinical in front of goal, there's every chance United could, for example, take the lead in this game.
Finally, Gaz, score prediction. Put your money where your mouth is. You can go with your head or your heart. What do you reckon the score is going to be in the final?
My head says 3-1 Manchester City. My heart says 6-0 Manchester United.
So you're going with your heart?
No, I'll go with my head. Look, I could see United taking the lead in this one. I certainly can't see it being a battering. Like City have it in them, of course, to put 6 goals past this Man United team in a final. I just can't see it. The way after you took the lead last season, after what was it, 12, 13 seconds?
Yeah.
I just thought, wow, this is going to be an absolute whitewash, and it wasn't in the end. It kind of surprised me. I'll say 3-1 Manchester City, though. That they've just got too much. I'd love to come here and predict a Man United win, and I'd love nothing more, but I can't see it, unfortunately.
Neither can I. Well, there we go. Right, guys, pleasure. I guess I'll say best of luck in the final for United. I have to say it on the show. I have to appear neutral, but I'm obviously hoping Man City win. What a pleasure, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, mate. I wish you no luck at all. I hope you have a horrible day.
Thank you very much, Gaz. Yes, the FA Cup final, the final domestic game of the season. Can Man City make it a double, or will United make it an improbable single, and one that will raise a lot of eyebrows? Wow! We shall see, guys. Do not forget to subscribe. Hope you have a lovely weekend and enjoy the cup final. I've been Adam Monk. Take care. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.